Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Afcon Show on the Ball Edition. On the Ball Edition, what do I mean? I mean, if you've missed it, we dropped a segment from a recording that we'd done called On the Ball with Coach Sizwe. And what we felt was that a segment is not enough. A segment is not enough for Coach Sizwe to delve into the detail, for him to explain the nitty gritty of what goes on the football pitch, the overloads, the half spaces. So what we decided was, let us give people just a show where Coach Sizwe can go wild and have fun. And with that being said, I'm joined by the man himself. Coach Sizwe, how are you, my brother?
How's it, my brother? I'm strong, doing well, enjoying the tournament. I am doing well, thanks.
On the Ball is basically a show where Coach Sizwe will delve into the detail, tell us a few things that he's noticed during the Afcon tournament from a tactical perspective, from a technical perspective, and we want his coaching eyes to show us the detail and show us things that we've probably missed. So Coach Sizwe, I'm not going to take your thunder, I'm not going to steal your shine. Just tell us a few things of what we can expect today and get us into it.
I think what we'll talk about today is pressing. I think maybe I saw a few interesting pressing trades from some of the top sides in the Afcon. Maybe as an intro to ask you guys, what do you associate elite teams? So by elite teams, I mean elite nations and clubs. So the top clubs in the world, clubs that are winning Champions Leagues, UEFA Champions League, CAF Champions Leagues, FIFA Club World Cups, FIFA World Cups, those kinds of sides. What do you guys associate with them? Like when someone says, think Real Madrid, Al Ahly, Mamelodi Sundowns, Man City, what do you associate with them? Football-wise, that is.
So, on my side, when you say elite teams, I think about something that I used to remember when we used to play, itiski on the street, or whether it was through the football clubs and the development structures we came through, was that don't bunch, everyone mustn't run after the ball. And there's a clip from the Netherlands team from back in the day where they used to try and press. I do not know what you call that thing, where it was 5-10 players running after the ball to close down the spaces. And that's what I think of when I think of elite teams today. That thing has evolved and it's become what we now see as counter pressing. I think there's a fancy word for counter pressing, you will tell us, and then natural pressing itself to say, okay, what is the trigger, what isn't the trigger. So I think you will always see some form of pressing from elite teams, and Ralph Rangnick said it best. There's no such thing as half a press or what we would call it here in our lingo, msopo press. It's either you're pressing or you're not pressing. So I think that's what I associate big teams with.
Funny enough, on that, I think I watched the show. It was on Coach's Voice, and he said about pressing is that you can't half press, or he described it using pregnancy. He said you're either pregnant or you're not. You can't be half pregnant. It was pretty funny.
To the layman, when you were to explain pressing from a football term, right? It's not pressing a button. It's not trying to. I don't know what other form of pressing there is. The only thing I can think of is someone pressing the button. But from a football sense, what is the purpose of pressing? Is it to get the ball? Is it to limit the chances that the opposition can make? What is it? Or is it everything encompassed into one thing called a press?
I'm glad you asked that question. So I think as I was preparing, and like you said, as a layman, or just even me growing up playing football, I used to associate pressing with, if someone says press, it means I must go put pressure on the ball, or I must go put pressure wherever the case might be. But pressing in essence is creating tension with the intention to win the ball to win the ball, to score goals, to win the ball, to get position. But it's what basically differentiates pressing from other forms of defending is the intention behind it. So I create tension, and it's not only me going to put pressure by the ball. It could be me flustering a space, making sure a team can't play there. It could be me shadowing them in a specific zone, using the touchline as my teammate and going there, making sure that it's very difficult for them to play. It could be me limiting time for them on the ball. It could be me limiting space for them on the ball. So all of those actions create tension, and then that tension then says to the ball carrier, you are now no longer in control of your decisions. Therefore, you are more likely to lose the ball. So the intention, I think, is the most fundamental thing in pressing. Is why are you doing what you're doing? Because I could still defend and put pressure on the ball, but my intention is to make sure that you play backwards or sideways. So I'm not really pressing. I'm just guiding you and making sure that I don't concede goals, whatever. So the big buzzword with pressing is the intention. Why are you doing what you're doing? And more likely than not, it's for you to get the ball back. It might look like it on TV that these guys are just going, but it's carefully thought out plans and organization. So some of the things which we really don't consider and see, but a lot of work goes into that pressing. All right, cool. So I'm gonna do a couple of sides. I'm gonna start with Nigeria, because obviously they're the only side that got 9 points. They won all their games. So Nigeria, Nigeria basically implemented a kind of zonal, a position zonal orientated zonal marking. So they set up in their shape. It was usually 4-4-2 or sometimes 4-2-3-1 with one striker leading the press, and then they basically guided the opposition into specific zones, and then they put pressure from there. So here you see their striker has basically split the two center backs, and he's basically you call that like shadow marking. So he's saying to the ball carrier that you can't pass back to your goalkeeper because I've got that covered. You can't pass back to the other center back, so I've got that covered. So he split the ground, and then in that zone that we've highlighted here, he's basically highlighted them to say, okay, here's where we're gonna put pressure on. We're gonna put pressure on the ball. Then here's another illustration. You can see Nigeria again when I say they're in the position orientated zonal marking. So here you can see the strikers just outside the screen. You've got the forward line, which is the 3 attacking players. Behind them is the 2 defensive midfielders, and they're basically covering the central zone. So they are basically saying you can't play through us, but you can go basically out wide. Then we'll start to put pressure from there. As I go there, you'll see they've marked their positions, and they've opened sort of, when we spoke about zones or targets, is in between them there, they've opened up basically a passing zone. Basically, they're saying to the center back, you can kick long, but if you want to pass, you can't pass these 2 short ones because we've got it covered. You can then play in this zone. As you can see, then they've got that zone covered. So they're forcing basically the center back to play long. So the intention for them is to say, we want to win the ball. You don't want to play short, but we want to win the ball because you're going to kick it long, then you're going to recover it from there. The next one is Ivory Coast. So I chuckled a bit when you spoke, Bonolo, about Holland and how they basically have a lot of players bunched up in one area. So remember I spoke about space-orientated pressing. So here you can see Ivory Coast have about 4 players in the zone where the ball is. And Sierra Leone have 2 players. Well, yeah, 2 players in the game, because the other 2 are just behind the Ivory Coast forward line. So they're not necessarily in the game. So they've basically congested that space where the ball carrier has to play. So they're putting pressure there. As I roll it forward, the ball carrier plays the ball into that space, and then they're able to win the ball. Now, if you can count, you can see their shape. They've got about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 players surrounded against 2 Sierra Leone players in that space. So they're able to then put pressure because they've congested that space. And then the resultant efforts of that is that they're able to work the ball forward, and then Nicolas Pepe is able to score a goal. So just to basically show you the connection between teams who are pressing really high and goal scored, is that you basically cut the distance that you have to travel. Once you've won the ball, you don't need to start and build your attack because you've got players waiting in forward positions. They call that rest offense. We'll tackle it some other time. They've got players waiting in forward positions, ready to get the ball once we've won it, and they're able to score the goal. The other side is Morocco, a similar pressing strategy that they've used. So you can see the surface area where the ball is. They've got about 4 of their players connected, and they basically solely focused on putting pressure on the ball, putting pressure on the ball carrier, and also blocking out any immediate passing actions. After they've won the ball, which is the next picture I'm going to show, Morocco have won the ball. It's now a 4v3. So the players in pink is the defensive line of Comoros, and then the players in red is the offensive line of Morocco. The players in yellow are the players you've managed to cut out of the game just by winning the ball high up there. Because now you've won the ball, you've turned it into a counter-attack, and that resulted in a goal for Morocco.
With regards to what you've seen and the patterns and how certain teams have utilized their pressing, do you see a pattern across the tournament? Because our opponents are not the same, right? So whatever problem Nigeria may face versus an Egypt is not going to be the same problem that a Morocco will face when they play their opponent within their group. So what similarities have there been? Is it them trying to find specific triggers, or has every team went and adapted how to press?
I think the similarities that I've seen, so from Morocco, from Ivory Coast, and from Cameroon, they've tried to, it's more of a ball-orientated, space-orientated press. So that's their reference point. So wherever the ball is, they'll focus as many of their men as possible in an organized manner to try and retrieve the ball. And then more likely than not, because they have 5 or 6 players around that area, when they win it, they can break. And I haven't seen them adapt their pressing strategies according to the opponents. Obviously, if your opponent is not a team who likes to play out, when you try and congest that space, they want to kick it long. They leave about their back 4 and the one defensive midfielder there, then they're able to pick up that ball and play from there. So most sides, those 3 sides that I've mentioned, have adopted that one. Nigeria against Egypt, and in their last game, they went more zonal. So Nigeria are not necessarily aggressive, trying to put a lot of pressure, but I think they are clear in their identity to say, here's our shape. We're going to have a shape of 4 at the back, 4 in the middle, and then where they adapt, it depends on the functionality of the opposition's defensive midfielder or 6. If he's a kind of creative player, then Iheanacho's tasked basically to stick with him and guard his movements. If they play guys who are not going to start the attack, then straight it's going to be a 4-4-2. Then we deal with the 2 center backs. That's where they vary it, but they function to say, go out wide, we cover the central spaces, go out wide, and then as soon as you've gone out wide, then we try and put pressure either to win the ball or to force you to play a long ball, and then the big centre backs will take it from there. So those are the few similarities, but every game, when you get into the game, you must adapt your plan, but you have to adapt to what the opposition is doing. What can the players do? What are the pitch conditions saying? All those kinds of things. Similar again, Morocco, I think I've discussed it, but this is just to show basically how they congest the side where the ball is. So they put pressure again on the space and the ball carrier. So you can see here they've got about 5 players situated in that space here, and basically they're forcing. As I spoke about, it's either to win the ball or you're forcing the ball carrier to kick it long, and then you pick up the ball and you play from there. This is another one. Similar again, they've got pressure on the ball carrier, lots of numbers in the area where the ball is. So that's why when you see a formation on paper, once a side starts pressing, except for maybe Nigeria, it's not going to look the same as what it is on paper. Obviously, here you can see it's the striker, it's the 2 wingers that come inside, and then the 2 central midfielders are tight, but it's no longer now giving width. We want to be compact so we can put pressure on the ball. And then after they've won the ball, similar situation. That's why it's important when you press, look at the numbers. The guys I've highlighted in yellow of the Gabonese players, the 1, 2, 3 are essentially out of the game, and you've got the 3 just in front of the ball plus the 3 further ahead in the attacking half against probably a back 3 of Gabon. So that gives better chances to score. So this is the second last one that I've got. I've got Tunisia, then I've got Cameroon, a really nice one for Cameroon, which leads to the goals of Abubakar and Ikambi. But for Tunisia, I think I've just got 2 clips. It's this one and how it leads to the goal. Again here, there's 9 players. So 9 players are all situated on the left-hand side of the field where the ball is. So they're putting pressure on Mauritania, Mauritania's taking a throw in, they want to congest the space, they want to put pressure on whoever's going to receive the ball, and then if they win it, there's enough players to break. So obviously they win the ball, and as you can see again, I've highlighted the greens, 6 greens of Mauritania after Tunisia win the ball out of the game because they're behind the ball. And then the 4 red, which is the back 4 against the 3 of Tunisia, they've got a man down, but then eventually it leads to a goal. Eventually it leads to a goal because they're able to win the ball high up through their pressing strategy. This was Cameroon up against Ethiopia. Again here, I've highlighted the area where the ball is played by Ethiopia in the central space, and then in that area you basically look at the pressure that Cameroon is putting. So there's pressure coming from the back, there's pressure coming from the sides, there's pressure coming from the front, and the pressure has also got covering shadows. So if you see my arrows pointing at the back, the guys who are putting pressure on the ball carrier, but also saying you can't play the ball where I'm coming from because I've covered that man. So you're basically forcing him now into a state of panic. He can't control his situation. After that, Cameroon are able to win the ball. Again, I've highlighted the guys in blue who are out of the game. The guys in purple, it becomes now a 4v4 essentially. 4v4 with guys chasing back. And then that leads to a goal by Abu Bakar. And then this one was a goal by Toki Ekambi. Again, the ball carriers they have highlighted, and you can see there's more Cameroon numbers in that zone than there are Ethiopian numbers. In Ethiopia, the side they're attacking. So when you're attacking, obviously you want to open up the field. When you're defending, you want to be compact. Cameroon have been compact, congested the space there, and then they win the ball. As soon as they win the ball carrier's got options. Does he play Abu Bakar forward? Does he play Ikambi on the side? And the pass that he plays, whatever pass he chooses to play, the guys again I've highlighted in yellow, out of the game. With one pass out of the game, and then obviously then that leads to a goal for Ikambi. So it's good to see that it's not only the quality of our football in Africa is shining. It's not only your European nations or European sides who are employing good pressing strategies which lead to you retaining the ball, which lead to you scoring. If you look at our elite sides here at the Afcon, who score the most goals and who are conceding the least goals, they are the ones who've got a sound pressing strategy, they've got a plan, and yeah, I think that's been pretty good to see. I won't say thanks coming to my tech talk today, so because it's a YouTube talk.
Yeah, indeed it is. But that's where TED Talks live. They live on YouTube as well. But I just want to close it out with one final question from my side. And that is, as much as you've seen the teams try and initiate the pressing, have you seen or identified any players that you think may be deemed press resistance? And to speak of press resistance, we speak of players who, even when you try and you press them, you try and take the ball, they can get themselves a maneuver out of that environment. So are there any players top of mind that you have seen with that ability thus far?
I think, a lot. The first time because the first side I watched it, second side, because Cameroon did press, and until obviously the red card, they were in the ascendancy, but as soon as then the red card happened in their first game, then the opposition set back, so there was no opportunities to press. But Senegal and Zimbabwe. Senegal did try to press Zimbabwe, and I thought the Zimbabwe midfielders, Matsonga in the midfield, Knowledge Musona as well, they managed to evade the press, and I think that's what made Senegal step back a bit and say, okay, no, these guys are pretty competent on the ball, we won't be able to just steal it off them. But then for Ivory Coast, Kessie in the midfield, when he gets pressed, he's able to evade trouble, and then your usual suspects, Mo Salah, Ndidi, Thomas Partey, they've been able to evade. But generally, I think African players are very neat with their feet, we're very strong, we're very fast. So you're able to evade the first challenge, the second challenge. But I think the pressing strategies that these teams have employed is to say they are now sending 5 or 6 players in a specific area or zone that no matter your skill, you need to beat 5-6 players for you to be press resistant. So that's the difficulty in it. If you watch the game, Mo Salah, every game that he played, he had 5-6 players around him. So he can evade 1 or 2, but with a limited space, time, it's difficult to evade everyone. So there is ways around it, but it's been difficult to be press resistant in in this tournament?
That is something that I actually haven't noticed, in the sense, like you said, that teams are now trying to deploy different players in different areas to prevent good dribblers, guys who are on the ball, to go into those spaces, which is quite smart. But Coach Sizwe, I think you've given us a very in-depth on the ball today. It was pressing our mental capability. It was pressing our understanding of what pressing is. So for that, I thank you. And to everyone who's watched this, please leave a comment. Let us know who you think has been one of the best press-resistant players, or any team that you think has actually instilled the philosophies and the ideas of the press, as Coach Sizwe has mentioned them down in the comments below. But with that being said, Coach Sizwe, I don't know if anything you want to say, but from me, Nyabonga, thank you very much for watching, and we will see you in the next one.